to prove their impact with all the great stuff that you guys are already just doing in the community. Last week, we talked about this idea of community buy-in, and we looked at the power of stories, not only of your story, but the participant story and the donor story, and putting those stories all together to really get the buy-in of the community in which that you're serving. This week, we're going to be talking about two things, actually. So we're going to talk about qualitative and quantitative impacts. Qualitative and qualitative impact effectiveness. And I think the best way to simplify those words is to put it like this. So qualitative is your perception, really. And so when you look at qualitative impact, it's the perception not based off of what you think, but really the perception based off of what the people that you're serving think. And so the way that you simplify it, again, in quantitative, you can think of just perception. Quantitative impact, you can think of it as not perception, so the opposite, where it has nothing to do with what you think, but it has everything to do with what is actually taking place. So qualitative impact focuses on perception, quantitative impact focuses on not perception, so things that are actually happening. I think to dive into those things, those two terms a little bit more, qualitative, I think another interesting way you can think about it is results that you think are happening. Results that you think are happening is another way that you can look at qualitative impact. And I say results in which you think are happening because, again, it is based off the perception, not off mainly of you, but the perception of your participants. And so when you think about perception, it really looks at what do you think is happening? What do you think is occurring? What do you think is going on? And thus, that's how I arrive at this simplified way of looking at qualitative impact, of looking at results that our participants think are happening. I don't know if you guys are sports enthusiasts, but I grew up in sports a lot. And so one of the quotes that was always told to me was that, oh, awesome, Monica did too, is that sports is 90% mental and 10% physical. And it wasn't until actually looking into this a little bit more and applying it to evaluations where they would see the importance of that quote of sports is 90% mental, 10% physical. That the mental game is really important, and it's something that's downplayed and discredited a lot. When we look at what we think is going on, that is something that we don't really give a lot of weight to, a lot of importance to, because it's not the actual result. But the thing is about when we look at results that we think are going on, we are focusing on that mental state. We're focusing on the growth of someone's thinking. And the interesting thing about that is our actions follow our thinking. Our actions follow our thinking. And so if that is true, well, then as you start and your participants start to have the buy-in of this program is really helping me, and I think it actually is doing that, well, then their actions are going to follow suit to their thinking process. And that's why we start with qualitative impact, because it focuses on the results in which that our participants think are happening. And again, once we get to this place where our actions align with the thinking, well, then that's where you get in the quantitative impact. And so there's a huge importance and stressor on focusing on qualitative impact first, because it focuses on what we think is happening. And the next step to that is our actions following suit to what we think is happening. But if we don't ever look at what we think is happening and we jump to the result of what we know is happening, we can't actually figure that out. We're missing a step. We're doing a misstep. And so quantitative, a good way to think about that, in addition to something that's not perception, is results that we actually see are happening. Results that we actually, so not that we think are happening, results that we actually see are happening. And so this has really nothing to do with our perception. It has everything to do with what we're actually seeing. I think a really good analogy is actually fruit. When you look at and you're focusing on something and you're thinking, and then you end up with the fruit of that thinking. Well, we naturally see fruit of that thinking, but we don't always just see what the actual thinking is. And so you can think of quantitative as the fruit of what we are doing in a specific program. I'm actually going to take some time to address this because I think it's really important. What is true impact? Because I think there are varying definitions when it comes to looking at impact just in general on a community. And I want to start off with this example. So specifically in Kenya right now, one of the nonprofits that I actually was assisting a while ago, it's called JamQuest. And so they provide educational resources to schools, specifically one of the schools, or orphanages, if you will, sort of a mixture of that, but in Kenya for students. And one of the things that they do is that they provide monetary resources so that they can afford to pay for teachers in that school. And so one of the statistics that they were looking at was the number of teachers that were in that school. That sounds great, right? Well, it sounds great until you realize that the teachers don't have the resources to actually teach. Or you realize that the teachers have not actually been taught how to teach younger students. And so we look at, oh my gosh, this is an amazing number of teachers. It looks great. It looks like there's so many teachers there. But the reality is there's no impact because the teachers don't even know how to teach, or they don't even have the resources to teach. And so the reason I share that example is we can't always look at just numbers when it comes to impact. We can't always just look at, when I say numbers, we can't always look at the magnitude of people that are a part of our program or the magnitude of people that are benefiting from this. I think what we have to look at is this individuals having changed hearts and changed minds. As I've sort of evaluated more and more, I've started to see that true impact are individuals having changed hearts and changed minds. And what that does is it takes the focus off of just this, I need to get more teachers, to use that as an example, and it puts more of the focus on effectiveness of those teachers. How effective are they? How much are the students actually being impacted by those teachers? And so what that does is it doesn't just look at the number of teachers, but it looks at the overall efficiency and effectiveness of that program on the community itself. And so that's where I'm able to boil it down to and synchronize it down to really true impact are individuals having changed hearts and changed minds. And so what that does is, to put it all together, is as you focus on qualitative impact, or you focus on someone's perception or the results of what they think are happening, you're looking at what do these individuals think is really happening to their minds and their hearts? Do they think that they're actually being changed? And then what happens from after that, if the idea of results lines up with actions, or actions follow that of our thinking, well, then what you'll be able to see is the fruit of those individuals having changed hearts and changed minds, which is quantitative impact. The quantitative impact is simply just the fruit, the actions lining up with the thinking. And those are the things that we see. But it starts with looking at the very things that we actually think are happening first. And again, that goes back to the idea of, if we think that it's happening more and more, and we focus on that mental state, then the actions will follow that thinking. As you do it more and more, and the consistency is there, you do it every single day, well, then the actions will follow. And so I really am able to boil it down to true impact are individuals having changed hearts and changed minds. And that is very, very important when it comes to just impact. So let's go through qualitative and impact and how to actually go about doing that practically for a second. So when it comes to qualitative impact, I think you start off with is looking at one program in your organization. And then maybe just select an event or activity or workshop within that program. And then think about what are our participants supposed to actually get out of that activity? What are they supposed to grow in? What are they supposed to understand? You want to be able to pinpoint what that is. And then you want to ask your participants, on a scale from 1 to 10, where do you guys see yourself in terms of what we're helping you grow in? So that becomes your baseline. On a scale of 1 to 10, where do you guys see yourself in this? Where you want to grow in? And then after the program or the activity, you want to ask on a scale from 1 to 10, where do you see yourself now as a result of that event or activity or workshop? And what that does, it gives you a gauge of the perception of how impacting your activity or event or program was on your participant based off the perception of the participant, not based off of how you feel or how you think. And that is just a good practical way, one mere example of how to go about recording qualitative impact. In the program that I'm part of now for One Day at a Time, their recovery house, one of the things that we look at is looking at their emotions and looking at coping mechanisms of their emotions. So we look at, on a scale of 1 to 10, how often do you feel certain emotions? So how often do you feel angry or anxious or depressed? And then we also ask, how often are you able to cope with those? And so what that does is it looks at the impact of this program based off the perception of the participants. We're also looking at, on a scale from 1 to 10, how often are you able to see the how often are you able to access health resources in Philadelphia? And on a scale of 1 to 10, how often are you able to access quality health resources to get the perception from the participant? And so it just continues to go back to that perception of the participant. So that's qualitative impact. That's looking at, again, the perception and looking at results based off of what the participants think. Now let's go to quantitative. So I think a great practical way of going to quantitative is looking at, again, selecting one program for your organization, and then thinking about, again, what is one main or overarching problem that the program is intended to address. And that may sound familiar because we were looking at that when we were doing the fishbone diagram. And so you can see sort of the steps that are taken so that you already have a lot of this information. But you want to see, what is that main overarching problem that the program is intended to address. And then you want to think about what statistics would show that that problem was actually being addressed by the program. What statistics would show that that problem is actually being addressed by the program? So for an example, again, going back to the recovery program, that one of the statistics that we look at is the amount of participants that relapse, because there is a larger statistic in Philadelphia, in the city of Philadelphia, on number of people that relapse over opioids within that year. And so that's one of the statistics that we look at. We also look at administration of naloxone or Suboxone, different things like that. That's what we look at, because those are statistics, hard things that aren't based on perception. We're able to look at this and like, wow, okay, these people must have some type of change heart, change mind, because we're lowering this statistic. And so those are just different examples of statistics based off the problem that they are addressing. And then you want to ask yourself, and even the people in your organization, what is your organization's area of focus? Because our areas of focus can be a wide range. Maybe your organization is so large that it focuses on the entirety of the US. Maybe it just focuses on one state. Maybe it focuses on one city or one area or region or district within that city. The reason why you want to ask yourself that question is you want to find a statistic based off the area you're actually focusing on. If you don't focus on the entirety, I'll use Pennsylvania for example. If you don't focus on the entirety of Pennsylvania, you don't want a statistic that has to do with the entirety of Pennsylvania, because then you're not going to be able to see the impact that you're having, because it's based off a statistic of a region that you're not even touching. But if you're focused on just Philadelphia, you want a statistic that has to do with Philadelphia. So for this organization, we're focused on Philadelphia because their organization impacts all of Philadelphia. And so that's why you want to ask your organization that question. It just narrows down your statistic, really. And then I think the last question is, what do you want your organization's area of focus to be? What do you want your organization's area of focus to be? Maybe it's just a city for right now, or maybe it's a district and you want to work up to a city, or you want to work up to the state. So where do you want to be? Because that's a statistic that you want to look at as well, to be like, I want to shoot for this as well. And so that is a practical way of being able to look at quantitative impact. So that's qualitative and that's quantitative. And again, that all has to do with this true impact of individuals having changed hearts and changed minds. And it starts by really looking at the results that we think are happening and then going to the results that we see are happening. And we get so caught up with, we need to be able to see this result. But the interesting thing is, just because we can't see it yet doesn't mean that we're not on the way to achieving this result. And that's why we have to look at, where do we think our participants are at, or what do our participants think they're at in being impacted by our programming, because that gives us a good gauge until we are able to really see it. And this even takes your donors along this story that you are presenting with, or presenting for them. It takes them along your progress, where you're able to see or show them that our participants actually see this program as impacting, and this is how. And we may not be able to see the result quite yet, but in this year or this 2 years, we should be able to see something. And so it gives really comfort to the donor as you're taking them along your process, rather than you giving them really nothing and them having to wait that year or 2 years for them to be able to see the impact that you guys have, rather than being able to see the impact along the way. And so next week, what we're going to go into are logic models. And logic models really just focus on, what do we need to change in our programming? How do we know we need to change something? Because we want to have this impact, but say that we put out a survey and we realize that our participants don't think that our program is really being impacting. Well, how do we know what to change? Because once we know that our program is not being as impacting, well, that's half the battle. The other side is, how do we know what to change? All we know is we need to change something. So now we need to figure out, how do we know specifically what to change? And logic models are super helpful in doing that. And so that is what we're going to go through next week. But this week, really wanted to touch on what impact was, and looking at what qualitative and quantitative impact effectiveness were, which again is looking at perception and results that we think are happening, but also looking at not perception and results that we can see are really happening. And it's just a stepping stone process in which to get to quantitative impact, which is ultimately where we want to get to. And that is the end of this time. And so I am now open for any questions that you guys might have.
Jameson, I don't have any questions this time, but I just want the information was very timely for me right now. As we're putting together our camp, I think the impact that we think we're having is probably different than what, so it's that whole idea of perception versus the actual. And now I think I have a handle on how to measure that and what we can do to measure that. So I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Definitely, no problem. I am grateful that it is very timely, as I also am in the process of evaluating our camps as well in preparation for the summer. So it was timely for me as well.
And I think I have a grasp of the two words, qualitative versus quantitative, because they're so similar.
Yes.
And I keep staring at them, trying to differentiate the difference here. But the perception of what we thought was going to happen with people getting these scholarships for culinary school, and what is the quantitative of what is actually happening is that some of the kids right now aren't interested in going. And I think it's because of all that has gone on, at least just with the one school we were focusing on. Yeah. So I had put something out there on Facebook to see if anybody knows anybody interested who's been accepted to school. Yeah. And or currently in school, so that they could take advantage of the scholarship. So yeah, we perceived that this would be an easy 1, 2, 3. And then in the background, not knowing how the kids were actually feeling, is what we got from the teacher. So yeah, it's been a hard year, and not knowing, because we don't have anybody in the house going through that.
Yeah.
And their emotions are just all over the place.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, even to say, for you to be able to practically put that together so quickly is impressive. Honestly, it really is. And so for you to be able to see that with the utmost clarity, this was our perception, but this is what's actually happening is awesome that you're able to do that. So even though it has been a very tough year, for you to be able to have that clarity first, that is the first step, is being able to really admit that this is where we're at. And so now now you can work forward. And so that is awesome.
Thanks, Monica. Yep, but we will press on, and new doors will open, and everybody will hopefully get back on track coming into the fall, going into the spring next year, so that they can go back to what seemed to have been normal.
Yeah.
But we know it's all a new normal of how we have to approach everything.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And one thing I didn't say, and this is why I really focus on impact being individuals having changed hearts and changed minds, is it takes the weight off of us having to have a result we need to see. Because we aren't really in control of that.
Right.
That result's a gift.
Right.
And so what it does is it really just takes a lot of weight and lightens the load for us. Rather than just me singularly focus on, I need this result, I need the result, I need to get this. But it really helps us to be able to see a different picture of what's actually already happening, which are these individuals changing. And then knowing that this result that we want to see, it's just a fruit. And if we focus on what we're supposed to be focused on, it'll come. And so it just lightens the load for me personally, and evaluate, it's lightened the load a lot. So
it definitely will come.
Yeah.
Not in our time, but at the appointed time.
Come on, Harriet.
Why are you trying to preach up in here?
Not at all. No. The last Zoom we were on earlier today was about public speaking. And so I've been struggling with doing Facebook Live. Remember, Monica, we were challenged with Facebook Live with Dr. Rowe?
Yes, I didn't get to do that either.
Oh my gosh. We did one little Facebook Live on our launch back in October, and it was just so quick. Somebody held the camera for us and then just kind of did a quick intro, but it was just enough to say, here we are. But it got a lot of hits because people like live stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna get past it, but it's just, and I've taken public speaking classes in the past, but if you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah.
And I'm more better like one-on-one than as a whole group of people. But then they say right now with Facebook Live, you don't see the people.
Yeah.
So it's just so it's just trying not to stumble over your words of what you want to say, how you want to say it, and be impactful on how they receive it, so that they can respond and hopefully give to the cause. But that's a whole other subject.
No, it's a different way of speaking. To be honest with you, especially if you're not used to it, even if you have taken a lot of public speaking classes, they usually don't talk about how to do it online.
Oh, how about that? Right.
Yeah, it's so I've had to grow in getting comfortable with that. Because one of at least the advice that was given to me was act as if the camera is another person. Because I am like you. Individual conversations, that's my home. I live there. I love it. And that's where I see a bunch of change happen. So that's why I like those intimate settings. But I have to treat even this, right? I have to treat this as an intimate setting thing. And so when I do live stuff, that's what I do. I treat it as an intimate setting thing. And it's cool, actually, when you do stumble over your words and you say, I didn't mean to do that, because it makes it more genuine. It makes it
True.
more real.
Right. That's true.
So it's just different things. I've learned that from just different speakers, just online, and different comedians. And so, yeah, it's the fact that you are taking that on is awesome. So.
And I think too, Harriet, just what Jameson has been saying about how the focus should be on the individual results versus us. Right. So, so if people hear you and respond, then, and not literally what difference does it make, but it's like, it's okay,
right.
if we stumble, because people are still responding to the like he said, the changed hearts and changed minds. So that's the impact we're looking at versus I just heard someone, I was on a Instagram live with my daughter. Well, actually, she does a lot of those things. So I was listening in, and one of the commenters said, "Done is better than perfect," and and I was just like, preaching to me. If for
I'm
no
writing
other
that
reason.
one down.
Yes,
Done is better than perfect.
I'm writing that down too. That's awesome.
So, and had I done the Facebook Live, I would have been able to say I did it, but I'm trying to be perfect, and it has to be this, and it has to be that, and it's like, no, so I very much so agree with the whole changed hearts, and changed minds is a much better what is the word, assessment, of how you've been impacting people. And I think that works. Yeah.
I think we're our worst critics. We, like, one of the things that most people did say in the workshop was that we don't like our voice. I don't like the way I sound. Other people don't like the way they sound.
Yeah.
And then when you see yourself back on replay, you're criticizing, I should have did this, I should have did that. How about it? And that is part of the practice. So that's part of getting the work in, do the practice, do the replay, start over again until you feel comfortable enough so that you can either go live or record so that you can see what you look back. And one of the things he was saying about your hands, and I talk with my hands a lot.
Yeah, that's hard to get over.
It's hard to get over, but don't stay in this. Don't be staunch and fold your hands, because it means you're not approachable. So it's just finding that happy place, comfortable place.
Happy medium.
Happy medium. All right, done is better than perfect. I like that.
Yeah, I wrote that down too. That was good. I'm probably gonna put that on the Instagram Live, to be honest with you.
I wish I could take credit for it. It was Ed. His name was Ed on
Ed said it.
And I might quote him then.
Ed was either prophetic or he got it from somewhere else.
Yes.
Oh man, and that's something else I'm trying to learn too, doing content, social media content. I was trying to get somebody to do it for me. And then my daughter, she posts a lot of stuff, and she said she's not good with content. So she reached out to a girl on her job who does content. So she's been trying to guide me on how to do it. And we'll see where that goes.
Yeah. If you get a hold of social media influencers, my wife is one, actually.
Okay.
And she helps this one she helps small businesses mainly, small businesses that are owned by women. And so there's one woman, she has like 7,000 followers, something like that. And she was able to get her to she's only been working for like 2 months, but I think they're at like 7,250 or something now.
Wow.
And so it's just having a social media influencer is really beneficial.
Okay.
And so, yeah, if you can get a hold on one of those, that would be, oh man, it's super helpful. It relieves so much stress.
So my daughter is that type of person, but she's doing her own nonprofit, and I'm trying not to be mean, but I'm looking at her like, hey, you could help me. We helped you when you were,
How about that?
But at the same time, I totally understand, they're doing some phenomenal things, and, no, it's all pandemic related. She's
Oh, wow.
she's a marine biologist, and
nice.
they started an organization called Minorities in Shark Science. It's
Okay.
NIST. And the weekend they started it, they raised over $20,000. Like
Wow.
literally,
That's
it was
amazing.
crazy. And
Mhm.
it was all born out of the the guy Chris Cooper, and was it Chris Cooper? I think. Well, anyway, the guy in Central Park that was being the woman that was calling the police
Mhm.
about him.
Mhm.
And
Mm.
so there was a Twitter hashtag Blacks in Nature.
Okay.
And
Wow.
so she and three other girls kind of they've never met in person. It's been a
Right.
year. They've never met in person, and they have
That's awesome.
raised, like I said, raised over $20,000 in a weekend. And then they've
Wow.
gone from hosting one workshop to hosting three. And
Wow.
they're sending interns to South Africa, and
Nice.
they're doing this really phenomenal stuff, and they're all under
Wow.
30.
Okay.
They're like Jameson kids. No, I'm just kidding. But she does a lot she does a lot of podcasts. She's a guest on a lot of Instagram lives and Facebook lives,
Wow.
and so it's like I'm trying to be nice and
Right.
just
She
support her.
found her niche.
Right.
Totally, yes, totally.
Mhm.
And it was a godsend, and it was the perfect
Mhm.
timing. And I think you had talked about that before, Harriet, just the timing,
Mhm.
of things. And it's like, okay, so let's find some other ones then. And if you guys know anybody who can, do the social media thing, I think they need to put themselves out there and let us know,
Mm.
so that
Right.
we can grab them.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
I got a lot of ideas. It's like, but I just don't want to sit down and do all of that stuff.
I think probably the ideas you have, you might just want to do short bites, because with Instagram, it seems like it's just small, short statements
Yeah,
that people pick up.
Yeah.
I have to put that the done is better than perfect. That has to like be
Gotcha.
floating
Come
on
first.
my screen, because
Yeah.
I start off with, oh, this should take me 5 minutes, and then it's
Right.
like 5 hours later.
Right. Right.
And it's
I
like, forget.
understand.
So,
Oh man, that's awesome.
sorry, we hijacked your
No, you're good. You guys are good. This is awesome. Great.
I know this is the most I've had a conversation with all of you at one time.
Yay.
But it's fun.
No, it is. I like conversation, so I'm good.
I'm sorry, I can't be visible. I hate that. I'm sorry.
We have our moments.
Very much so.
Oh,
This
my
is
God.
this is I'm looking forward to re-listening to this broadcast, because I didn't get to take notes, and there were a lot of things that you said that were just very impactful.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, this was timely based on everything that's going on with the way the scholarship kind of went left. And I'm really determined, like, it's got to happen, because I told the people that their money was going to go toward the scholarship. So,
yeah. Harriet, we had sort of a similar situation with our camps. Our camps are, we asked for a $25 like an administrative fee, and just have you bring the kids to the camp, but everything else is, we pay for everything. And our first 3 camps, we like had to go begging for kids,
oh, wow.
and it was, and it would have been helpful to have had this type of training to figure out why, because we were just scratching our heads, and it really is just a cultural thing, in the sense that a lot of people don't just want to let their kids go with somebody they don't know, kind of thing. And so we ended up literally having to, it was like my niece and one of the kids of one of the board members, you know what I mean? It was like people that we knew and that they knew us, and so we had to start with that. But by about the 4th camp, we were able to, reach people that didn't necessarily know us. They still had some connection, but we didn't know them necessarily personally as we did the first 2 camps. So
yeah, I guess you have to find a common ground with camps, and hopefully maybe the school systems could get involved. Maybe even get a school to allow you to be in their place, because you want to. It has to be a safe place,
right? And that's exactly what we're doing this year. That's exactly how we're reaching out. Yeah, we've connected with the middle school. So hopefully that'll, But it is amazing. You're trying to give stuff away, and people's like, "Yeah, that's okay."
I know. And then when I heard you talk about your music camp, that made me feel like, oh, maybe we should have some type of cooking camp. But I'm a home cook. I'm not like a professional cook. So, but then I was thinking, when we could have maybe guests come in. I don't know. It's just a thought, but just the idea of the of your music camp inspired me to say, oh, maybe a cooking camp might be interesting. But that's all down the line once we get past pandemic. But I know I have to do something on Zoom, because that's where we live right now in the virtual world. And,
well, Harriet, that's one of the things we're doing at our camp this year. It's a health and wellness camp. So one of the components is healthy eating, healthy cooking. And we always have had what we call the home economic component, because it's a farm. It's at a farm. So the girls are in a farmhouse. And my co-founder, she does all of that. She does the cooking. It's her family's farm. So she does all of the cooking and everything, but she doesn't actually do the cooking. She just schedules the girls. And, they're the one time we have boys, but the kids basically do all of the cooking. And we're just amazed at, kids that have never been in a kitchen. And, these are teenagers. They, never had, what is this, a microwave? And I mean, it's
not
crazy.
The microwave.
Yes. And they putting stuff in the microwave. They were like, no, blow the house.
Oh, man.
But
they're going to start a fire.
Like Jameson said, we see the impact, afterwards. Because, even with them telling their parents, hey, I made pancakes, and the parents are looking at us like, no, you did not let this child in the kitchen. But one of the components for this year's is to, I think we're having a chef, or we're at least looking for a chef to come and teach the girls how to cook healthy and what to look for, reading labels and things like that. So
that's good.
So your home cooking, I know it's probably off the chain, and I don't see why you wouldn't think you would want to teach anybody that.
I know. Well, I do have a cookbook that I wrote in 2014.
Okay.
And I was pushed to write it because I was cooking for my pastor for like umpteen years. And so he inspired me and challenged me really to write the cookbook. So I did. And, I didn't market it great, but I think I sold a couple 100 copies or whatever. And I just got another 100 now, because here it is 6-7 years later, people are asking for this cookbook because maybe they're home and they need to, want to learn how to cook.
Right.
So that's why I'm going to use that to start with, using a cookbook and focus on a recipe. And then that way we can sell the book if they're interested, and move it like that. But this healthy eating thing, people aren't, there's a group that likes healthy eating right now, and there's a group who don't. I was trying to focus on maybe a vegan menu for one of our fundraising dinners. So I was asking some ladies, older ladies, and they just looked at me like, vegan? No, what's that? So, you have your people who just like your regular home cooked fat, butter, and then you have your other people who don't want to eat mommies. I mean, anything with a mommy because you're vegan.
Yeah.
And, you got to trick them, Harriet. You got to trick them.
You're right.
That's how that works.
Totally. You're right. That's my husband's family. They don't want to have nothing to do with none of that, And I'll never forget the first time I made turkey meatloaf.
Okay.
Made meatloaf, because we only do turkey. My husband had high cholesterol, high blood pressure. He's gotten, we got all of that under control. Right. But and one of the family members said, oh, I don't eat turkey. That's nasty. and they came over and I
Right.
put it on the plate and they ate it and they said, sister, can you make another one of those meatloafs for me? I said, sure can, sure will, no problem.
Isn't that something?
Never told them,
Right,
make green
that's
beans,
awesome.
green beans with turkey,
Right,
say, oh
right.
no, I got to have my ham hocks. Blah, blah. Okay,
Yep.
this is so good. Anyway,
Yeah, it's all in the flavor.
That's
Jameson
priceless.
is like, let me cut this off.
No, I'm laughing. That's priceless. I do the same thing. So
Yeah, it's all in the flavors.
It is, and then I always present it as, like you said, there's the one group that wants it, the one group that doesn't. And I'm like, okay, so we got the people that's going to be alive, then the people that's not. So I'm going with the living people. I'm going with them. I'm going to stay with them for a little while.
Well, I guess too much of anything could be bad.
Yes.
So we just have to, but I try not to I don't put any ham hocks in greens or anything like that. No, I do the smoked turkey.
Oh man.
Yeah. So some things we had to just remove all the way.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, exactly.
No, I don't do chitlins. I don't play that.
Ooh, Lord.
I did all of that in Texas. So
you did?
I did. I don't do it anymore, but I got my fill of it. So
Right.
Never.
I did
The
all of
smell.
that.
Oh.
Oh man. It's
yeah,
hard to
Harriet,
contain myself when I go back.
You have a lot to contribute, Harriet. I'm sorry.
Right.
Definitely. No, you definitely have a lot. I think you could be teaching folks,
Oh
and
my gosh, man.
Forget that
making me blush.
You wrote a book. Anybody that writes a book, I
Right,
think they can definitely teach a lot and be a professional or consider themselves to be a professional.
Right.
So most definitely.
Yeah.
Righty
Yeah.
now.
Mm-hmm. So
Well,
I'm gonna be reaching out to you anyway, Harriet, because I need to. I'm thinking for kids. Yeah.
Okay, and I wanted to chat with you as well because I heard you say something about scholarships at one time and how that works. So we'll have a moment to chat.
Yes, ma'am. And I'll make sure I'll put my. We're gonna do it over Zoom. We're gonna do it over Zoom, and I'm going. I'm gonna have my face.
I'll inbox you on Facebook.
Okay, that's great. That's great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sounds good. All right. So that was a nice, productive meeting.
Thank you, Jameson.
They all are. It was just a little different outside the box because you started with the qualitative and the quantitative.
Yes, and the quantitative.
And we both had our little issues going on that we that we just needed to air out.
Yeah, no, that's what this is for, honestly, for us to be able to learn from each other. And so I think that's the cool thing about it. So
awesome. Yes.
That is cool.
Yes. Thank you.
All right.
No problem.
I feel like a benediction is coming on or something. All minds clear.
There you go. Take it home.
I'm so hurt.
That was great.
All
right, guys.
All righty. Well, thank you again.
No problem, guys.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.